everybody. So thank you so much for the introduction. I'm Dr. Arnett. My two mentors, which I have the pleasure of having with me today, Jasmine Lafferty and Keaton Moore. I will be introducing and they will be speaking for me about halfway through the presentation. So I'm very excited to be here and talking on this topic, which is very near and dear to my heart. As I'm a first generation student myself, so it's been generally very amazing to be engaged with this network as a whole and certainly engaged with this working group. So I have only had the opportunity to be working with this working group for about 2 years now. So I'm here to really talk about some of the things that we do in the working group and really talk about these immersive sites and how they work. And then really to allow the students that I've brought with to talk in detail about some of the things that they're doing in the sites. They really get to do a big portion of leading that. And then they have some of the responses that the students themselves, the interns, have given back on how effective some of these things are since these sites are a bit new. They've only been running, I think, about 3 or 4 years. So of course, we don't have any final data yet on how these things are. We've been able to track graduates all the way through. And see any long-term data, but we kind of have some early data to see how this is working. We all know generally, of course, why we're here. We care about students, we love students, and we love to see them succeed. And so generally, of course, it's first two, right? We're looking at the first 2 years of a student in general, which in and of itself, of course, is problematic. We know that this is the time that we really want to be concerned about student success and student retention, right? This is when students tend to flitter off into the abyss. And really when we're talking about first generation or any underrepresented population, right? Students that do not have either of their parents that have a 4-year degree or underrepresented populations, we're thinking people of color, rural populations, female students, right? Any of these populations that are not well represented, particularly in STEM degrees, these populations are even more vulnerable, right? And really the big things we're looking at here, of course, are representation matters, right? Cost and time commitment matters, right? These populations are more likely to have additional work and family commitments. They may have less experience. Perhaps with larger communities, perhaps with technology, perhaps with large classrooms or access, whether that's access to tech, material, or information, right? So, and some of these things may seem small to us, right? I can think of an experience I had recently. So we, for example, come up with great new ways to help our students, right? So like with phones, right? We come up with new ways to get our phone engagement on with things like Socrative or Menti. I'll have a Menti popped up here. For us all to try to engage with each other, right? Students have them out in the classroom anyway, let's try to use them. But oftentimes these populations might not have these things or might not have good experience with these things. So maybe they've never used a smartphone before, or maybe they have one of those track phones, disposable phones or flip phones. And these apps don't work very well on there. So now they're at an impasse where they're either learning to use a brand new tech or they have to overcome the embarrassment. It's the first week of school. Now I have to talk to the instructor, or worst case scenario of all, they're just not going to say anything at all. Push through it. And now this is just one more barrier to success that these populations are going to be dealing with. So this is really what we're concerned with here, right? Are these additional barriers to success that these populations may be coping with, in addition to all of these other issues that all students are dealing with in their first 2 years. Now, the other issue, of course, you can see my engagement activity. So this is going to skip for a couple of slides, so don't worry. But I definitely recommend popping into that while we're talking today. So one of the other things we've been dealing with, of course, that we know about here in the last couple of years is the pandemic, right? And that's just made so much things worse. Certainly for everybody. I know I've had a hard time, but these underserved populations are having exacerbated issues, right? So research has started to show, we know that students are having a hard time, and this is slowing their degree progress or causing them not to graduate at all. And the research is suggesting that the main factors to this tend to be cost, right, which is already prohibitive for most students, but certainly these underserved populations. And it tends to be for these other issues like isolation. So we're already suggesting that underserved populations are having issues due to representation, barriers to access or experience, and how we're isolating them. So these are going to cause additional issues. So, of course, we have the whole network in general that helps us deal with this, right? Many of you probably are already a part of this. So the whole network in and of itself is focused on improving the retention and persistence is in a two-pronged way. And so this is going to bring us directly to what I want to talk about today, which is the immersion sites and the immersion working group in and of itself, right? So the goals overall are focused on these first generation and underrepresented students. And that really here is that second bullet in the goals section, right? Doubling that graduation rate overall, right? We want to get it at least above 50%. And of course, really focusing on that other thing we talked about, right? The degree progress. And we get to do this in part because we have funding and we have this great inclusive group, which we see covers everything from academic institutions, K-12. We see that state and nonprofits are involved, and you'll see I'm also going to talk a lot about the student voice. And I heard that question pop up as well in the last session. So that was a really great segue to several of the pieces that I want to talk about as well. So we have all of the right outcome ideas and a lot of the resources to be able to tackle this. So, as I'm sure so many of you are aware, there are actually a lot of working groups. I kind of like to think about them as think tanks, right? A lot of different groups that include all of those inclusive institutions, both big and small, like WVU or Fairmont UC, right, smaller ones, as well as these other sort of non-year-round institutions, things like High Rocks or AGTC, right? And again, these students that are both engaged in the working group level as well as in these other levels that we're going to be talking about as we go forward. So as we can see here, each working group has a specific actionable goal. And I'm not going to go through and read them, partly because that's very boring to listen to, but you can read them here. But more importantly as well, as these are all oriented towards that broader framework, but my goal, of course, is to really focus on the one that I'm really centered on here, which is that immersive experience, right? So something in this case, it's going to be key on how do we get exposure for those students as they're entering very early on into their college experience, really at any level that we can, both with college and with their STEM, right? So both with their STEM experiences and their sense of STEM self, right? So that's really our key here in this working group is any way that we can get them exposed, that's going to be our goal and our key here. So a little bit of a lag there, sorry about that. The way we go about doing this is multifold. So the first and probably what we're most well known for is the immersive summer site, right? So this is sort of a summer program. They're also kind of referred to as camps that the students are applied to, right? And when we're saying the students or the interns, right, these are rising freshmen, right? These are graduating high school seniors that are going into these camps before the summer before they're entering college as their freshman year. So the key here, and when we're referring to exposure, right, we're trying to do this at as many levels as possible. So the first of which is this early inquiry research, right? So some kind of STEM research project, right? So for example, at UC, and my students will talk about this a little bit more, they'll have some examples to show you, right? We had our students come out, we went to a creek, we got to sample water and soil and organisms and bring them back, right? Look at and try different science methods, put all those pieces together, do a presentation, right? So they're getting multiple different steps of science. long before they would normally get to do these things. I don't know about you guys, but when I was in school, right, I didn't get to do a lot of that stuff altogether until like my junior or senior year. Right, and then addition or on top of that, we want to expose them to a lot of other things, right? We talked about that access and familiarity really plays a role in how their first couple of years go, right? So get them onto a college campus, ideally the one they're going to go to, but at least a college campus, right? And let them see what these things are like. So have them stay in a dorm, have them go to a dining hall, right? Have them get to deal with a college schedule, right? And if they happen to be at their college campus, that gives us additional benefits. So at our summer campus last year, the students that were coming here, we were able to look at their schedule. We were able to deal with their financial aid. We were able to deal with their housing. When we had students here, we were also able to set them up for some additional bonus things, right? So for example, some students were interested in auditioning for band or choir. We were able to set those things up while they were here, which were also some financial aid scholarships. So it really helps them both interact with additional faculty and additional staff and work on some additional issues that they're concerned about. So really immersive, kind of in every way that you might apply that term. Now, additionally to the summer site, and at the end, we'll talk about some new or more expansive things that we might not think about, but there's other things outside of summer that go into this. So one of the bigger things that really play a role here is the First2 Club. And so this is something that certainly goes on throughout the academic year. So any student that's in a summer site should ideally also be in the First2 Club. So this is something, and there's several pieces that students that are part of the First2 Network can, in fact, receive some kind of stipend for. So here we are trying to tackle that cost issue. How can we help students overcome the costs of colleges? But almost maybe more importantly, or at least certainly equally important, are some of the other services that this is providing. And that second bullet to me, I think, is really key, right? They're getting emotional support. You are not alone. This experience is not novel. You are not the only one going through these things. And also they can receive advice and support from other students that are either in that class or in those classes as well, or also from older students, right? Particularly if the club's been around, but the club also should have executives and mentors and students that went through it last year that can provide them, this is how you study, right? This is a good way to start studying. What is timing like? Here are the tutoring resources. And that's really beneficial, particularly to students that maybe are just starting along. These events are also funded by First2. The club is funded by First2. And so before COVID, I know these funds could be used for like snack parties and stuff, but that's not very COVID friendly anymore. But I saw last year the mentors use these things for like goodie bags and study supplies, which is a really great tool. Okay, so I'm gonna stop talking and let my mentors that I brought with do most of the talking from here on out. And they've got a really great set of expertise to do this because they've kind of done just about everything First2 has to offer.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jasmine Lafferty. I've served as a summer mentor at the UC site for the past 2 summers. I am the campus liaison for the First2 Network UC chapter, and I'm also a student director.
Hello, my name is Keaton Moore, and I am a senior biology student at UC. I have been a summer mentor for 2 summers too, as well as at the UC site. I am the First2 campus president and a acting First2 scholar. So I'm going to be speaking to you a little bit about the roles of mentors that we have. So to begin with pre-work, our first task was involved in interviewing students. So me and Jasmine actually ran several of the interviews, and we provided critical feedback for the professors to really make these decisions on what interns are going to be chosen for the immersive. Additionally, we also made initial contact with these students and kept connected until the start of this immersive. And this was really important because we were getting better response rates from the students compared to the professors. So this was also important because we needed important paperwork prior to the start of immersive. So we were able to get that much quicker. Another thing that we did was we made a list of recommended things to bring to the immersion program. And we found that's really beneficial this year because this was the first in-person immersive at UC. And I felt like the students really needed a guided list to kind of put them at ease. So moving on to the research aspect. So me and Jasmine actually helped with the sampling at Morris Creek. So you can see the bottom two pictures are interns sampling. And we were really a support system for them in the lab and in the field. So the top three pictures are in the lab. We were there to help with any equipment or techniques that they had trouble with. We were that extra hand. We helped them out when the professors had to step out. We also were key in helping with data analytics and poster presentations because Jasmine and myself have done poster presentations. So we were able to give them helpful advice in these presentations that they've never done before. One imperative thing I think we did was we held a whole day of practice sessions prior to the final presentation. And I feel like that really made them more comfortable practicing around Jasmine and myself before they had to present in front of everybody, including professors. So moving on to some of our mentor sessions. So this is beyond the science of the immersion. I felt like this was our largest task as mentors. So half of our activities really focused on bonding with the interns and helping them build comfort with each other and with the mentors and the professors as well. So we started out with LOAs on the first night, which are lots of attention time, which is something that we learned from First2 and have really implemented in all of our immersions. So that was helpful in getting to know the interns right off the bat. And then some other fun things we did were the bonfire night, which really was this about relaxing and kind of opening up with each other in a pretty fun environment. The murder mystery was another favorite because we had to work together as a team to really solve this. Movie and paint night were another fun activity. The cooking decorating contest was this first picture up here. And we had Dr. J's famous empanadas that night. So that was always a fun time. And then we were able to be on campus during the 4th of July. So we were able to have a cookout and watch the fireworks together. So I felt like that was a really a bonding experience for them. So additionally, on top of bonding, our other half of these nightly sessions focused on adjusting to college life. So we really wanted this to be a smooth transition from high school to college. So one of the things that we did was 20 things, me and Jasmine made a list that was 20 things we didn't know going into college. We implemented this in our last summer immersion last year, but I felt like it was really hit home better this year because we were in person and it was personal experiences from me and myself, or Jasmine and myself. Additionally, we did panels, including a mental health conversation with Rance Berry, our mental health counselor on campus. And the college life panel included students that are acting as RAs and other college life staff like student life, RDs, financial aid, all those kind of people that you're interacting with on a regular basis. Jasmine and myself also brought in questions just in case these students weren't comfortable asking questions so that they got like a full scope during these panels and really could learn as much information as possible. So handing it off to Jasmine to continue this.
All right, thank you so much, Keaton. So moving on to post work. So something that I think is kind of not as thought about or not as recognized in the summer immersion process is that the work doesn't stop that last day. It actually just really starts to morph into a totally different set of standards and things that we as mentors need to do. So first of all, we conducted surveys, both for the network and to finish out our PDSAs. And then the last day of the immersion experience, we made a group chat with Keaton and myself and all the interns. And from that point to now, that group chat is still active. If they had a question, they could pop it into the group chat, such as, where do I park on move-in day? Do I really need to buy this book for this class? Where's a good place to buy this book for this class? Things of that nature. And we also highly encourage involvement in the First2 Club. And I'm very proud to say that we had 100% rate of the interns from this year's immersion transferring into the First2 Club. So 100% of our interns transferred into the club. And also we encourage them to apply to be scholars for the First2 Network on a network-wide basis. And we did have one person actually apply to be a scholar and is accepted. And we also have worked on a study hall, which is just 2 times a week. We meet up to practice and to study and just hold each other accountable. So moving on, I really want to focus on thoughts from the interns. So these are a few activities that they say they like best. So as you see here is all of the bonding activities, but what really brings this full circle is the next slide, which is what was your biggest takeaway? And I was expecting this to be research or a certain thing that we worked on, but it was all about giving them confidence. It was all, y'all taught us at college would be difficult at times, but we could survive. People are more approachable. I had people that would have my backs. It was all showing them that they can do it, that they had people in their corner and that college is something that they can do.
Right. Thank you, ladies. Absolutely excellent. So as we can see, absolutely frozen. There we go. All right. So as we can see, both from what we're seeing from the mentors conversation and our own concerns, right? The things we're concerned about and the things that the immersion sites are trying to fill in those gaps for are all sort of these same issues, right? We want our students to feel like they're ready. We want them to feel, as we can see from sort of this bottom issue, we want them to feel like they have camaraderie, right? And that's sort of this idea of they're getting and being able to make friends both with each other, with their mentors, right? So we're sort of building guilds or student groups. And ideally, right, now certainly like we cannot solve all of the financial concern issues, but we're starting to be able to give them tools, right? We can start to address these concerns there. And there's different scholarships, and I think Jasmine and Keaton did a great job of starting to talk about these, right? The club can give them tools. Even there, they talked about sign up, right? There's all of these additional scholarships, and they did a great job even signing up some students right there. And I remember sitting in the room with them and they push, push, push. And the study habit thing. So they are doing a really great job with this. And that's one last thing that I actually want to talk about, or what are some new things that we can do to try to push this. And so one of the things I actually want to mention is the math boot camp, which was and was not part of the immersion experience. And I actually saw Lori was here the last time I poked in. I want to give her all of the love, all of the love. This was not us in any way, shape, or form. Her and some individuals through WVU kind of started this as a workshop that ended up sort of integrating throughout the immersion experience. But basically the idea is this is like a workshop, a virtual workshop over the summer to help boost math stuff. And I saw I kind of followed a math talk from Dr. Segal. So it's almost like First2 sort of planned putting these talks next to each other. We know that these are things that cause students to feel like they don't have confidence in each other or in themselves in ways that they can support each other and feel better about themselves. So this was one thing that they had started to do that I think was great. And other things that my students already mentioned, right? These scholarship and director positions, we continue to bolster both that financial concern and their integration in STEM work. That club is really important, and the study hall that they mentioned. So that actually started here thanks to another grant that we have, the NSF Spec Scholarship, which is actually run by Dr. Aida Jimenez, who also is part of First2. But she actually linked that with the First2 Study Hall, and this has been a really great program, right? As they mentioned, keeping each other accountable, keeping each other supported, and teaching each other these study skills. Sarah's telling me to shut up. So I'm just gonna let everybody know our network is huge. I'm done talking. I do want to remind everybody there's more ways you can find out this information. So I'm gonna leave this here. And thank you so much.